So you're in the market for a Moonswatch, but you don't live near a Swatch boutique. So you're going to buy something online, but you're worried that you're going to receive a replica watch, and for good reason, because there's a ton of replicas being sold, even on trusted websites like eBay. So let's take a moment to take a look at some listings and see if we can figure out from pictures alone whether or not these watches are real or fake. So let's just do a quick search here for Moonswatch, and we see we have 2,100 results. Now I purposely have my screen cropped so that I don't advertise any of these sellers. I have this sorted as price plus shipping, lowest first, and we see some auctions here. I'm just going to eliminate these auctions, and I'm going to go ahead and select buy it now. And let's see what comes up. So the first items here are boxes. And here's our first watch, which is being sold for $80 US, shipped from China. As we scroll down, we just see all these listings from China. Now, obviously, if you're going to buy a watch for under $100 US, it's going to be a replica, right? There's no Moonswatch that you're going to be able to buy for less than $100 unless it is completely abused. So let's get rid of all these listings from China. I'm going to go ahead and select US only because I am in the US. Now we narrowed that down to 724 listings. And we've got something here that's a mission to Venus for $110. Very suspicious. And let's go ahead and just keep looking. So let me show you something that I believe is authentic. So here's a mission to Mars that I've already looked at. Now, this one has pictures of the guarantee card and the receipt. So that's a good sign, although these can be duplicated by the replica manufacturers as well, and they often are. So the first thing I do is take a look at the watch, and I take a look at this sub-dial at the 2 o'clock position. So on an authentic Moonswatch, this 2 o'clock sub-dial hand is actually a 1/10 second counter for the chronograph. It doesn't tell the time. It's independent of the time, so it's only used for the chronograph feature. If the chronograph is properly calibrated and it's reset, then this hand should be pointing straight up. In this case, it's pointing straight to the 10, which indicates 10/10 of a second, or that's the 0 spot or the reset start spot of that subdial, pointing straight up. So that's a good sign. So if I see a hand that's not pointing straight up, then I get suspicious that either the chronograph is running or it wasn't reset or the hands are not calibrated. But this one's pointing straight up, so that's a good sign. And let me explain the reason for that. Because on the replicas, this subdial is actually a 24-hour GMT hand. It's not part of the chronograph on the replicas. And I will explain that by looking at this Pagani PD 1701, which is an homage to the original Moonwatch. This uses a Seiko VK63 Mecha Quartz movement, and at the 3 o'clock subdial position, it has a 24-hour GMT hand. Now in this picture, the watch itself is set to about 10:09. And I don't know if that's AM or PM, but I can look at this subdial and I can see what the time is on the subdial. So this hand is basically pointing to 2200 hours, which is also 10 PM. So this small hand in this subdial is telling the same time as the main hands. So that's what I'm looking for when I look at the replicas, okay? So going back to this mission to Mars, we see that this is pointing straight up. Now, if these hands were set to 12 o'clock, specifically midnight, then this could be a problem. I wouldn't be able to tell whether this was real or fake. But because these hands are set to a different time other than midnight, and this small hand is pointing straight up, that's a very, very good sign that this is an authentic watch. The next thing I'll check is just the printing on the bezel. Make sure that is crisp and clean, and this one appears that way. If we take a look at the back of the watch, we notice that the crown is sitting nice and flush with the case. So that's also a good sign. And we just kind of take a look at the text that is molded into the back of the case and make sure it's readable and it's legible. But most of the replicas do a pretty good job of this as well. So not much to see here really other than maybe just the crown. Now this one does not have the original strap. It has an aftermarket strap, but I guess that's okay. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at another one. So we determine this one is authentic. Now here is a mission to Venus that's $175. Let's take a look at this watch. And if we zoom in, we see that this small hand is pointing straight up, so that's a good sign. The watch itself is set to about 3 o'clock, so they are not telling the same time. So I believe this one would definitely be authentic. Now, one problem you might run into is that the seller might be posting pictures of an authentic watch, but they actually ship you a replica. So, we can only do so much by looking at pictures. We don't know if we're going to get the same exact watch shipped to us that's being pictured. Sometimes they might just steal pictures from other listings. So keep that in mind. So let's go back to this mission to Venus and zoom in on that subdial, and we can see that this is not pointing straight up. So that's not a good sign. So we need to investigate a little bit further. So now let's go ahead and take a look at the time that is set on the watch, and it looks like it is set to about 7:40. And unfortunately, that pretty much corresponds to the time that is set with this small hand. So if this was a 24-hour scale, so think of this as the right half of this subdial is for the AM and the left half is for the PM. So this is 12 AM and down here would be 12 p.m. We'd have 6 p.m. here. So this is showing about 7:30 or so. So that's not a good sign. So it's actually showing the same time as the main hands. And if we take a look at the back of the watch, we see quite a bit of spacing between the crown and the case, and we can actually kind of see underneath the crown a little bit. So I would say this one is definitely a replica. And it's priced at that price point as well. So we can't expect an authentic watch at $110 price point. But what if we go even higher? So let's go to look at a higher price point and see what we find here. I'm not going to look at these because it looks like the sellers put their little ID in there, and I don't want to advertise that. So here's one here. Let's take a look at this mission to the moon for $225. And we take a look at this subdial, and yeah, that's not a good sign. It's not pointing straight up. It's pointing down close to, remember, this straight down would be 12 p.m. So this is somewhere about 10:30, 11, and that corresponds to the time on the watch. The time is currently set to 10:23. So unfortunately, I'd say this one is a replica. There's no pictures of the back of the watch. But I would definitely stay away from this one for $225. Let's see if we can find another one. So here's some more. Let's take a look at this mission on Earth for $232. And we can see that this is not pointing straight up. It's actually pointing pretty close to 6 a.m. or about 5:30, and the time on the watch is 5:20. So this small hand is actually telling the time. It's not a 1/10 second counter. It's corresponding to the time on the watch, so that is not a good sign. Don't know if there's any pictures of the back of the watch on this one. Oh, there's a different color? Or no, that's just blue UV light, I guess. And some box. But yeah, I wouldn't buy this one. I believe it is a replica. Now, some other watches to check for are the Snoopy watches. So here is an obvious fake. This one has Snoopy and Woodstock on the dial. So Swatch does not even produce this watch, so this is an obvious fake. But let's go ahead and take a look at the subdial anyways. We can see this subdial is pointing to, let's see, that'd be 6, probably close to 8 a.m. And we can see that it is set to almost 8 a.m. It's set to 7:48 or so. So this small hand is telling the time that the watch is set to. That is not a good sign, but this one's an obvious fake. We already knew it because Swatch does not produce this watch with Woodstock or Snoopy on the dial. But yet it's listed for $235. Now, if we find let's see, an actual moon phase watch, those are a little bit harder to tell because there is no hand at the subdial position. So if we look at this 2 o'clock subdial on the authentic moon phase, this is actually a 29.5-day moon phase calendar. On the replicas, this will still be a 24-hour GMT wheel disc. So Snoopy will just move around every 24 hours. So unfortunately, with the moon phase watches, we really can't determine fake versus real by looking at just a picture. So I'd probably stay away from these. This one's listed for $285. And of course, there's just no guarantee what you're going to get. Now, if you are interested in purchasing an authentic watch online, you can always go to the Omega Swatch website. And at least in the US, if you click on Bioceramic Moonswatch Collection, they are offering 4 models online. You can get Mission to Earth, Mission to the Sun, Mission to the Moon, and Mission to Mars for $270 shipped. And then you know you're going to get an authentic watch with a warranty. So I don't know if many people know that these are available online, but you can get at least 4 models shipped directly from Swatch. Now there's one other watch that I want to bring up, and that's the modded watches. So the latest trend is to make metal cased moon watches. So if we just put steel mod in the search, let's see what comes up. We've got 0 results. Let me go all, because maybe there's some auctions. No exact matches found, but we do have some. Here is one. This one I looked at earlier, and this one was a little interesting because this small hand is pointing straight up. So that first sign would say, just looking at this watch, I'd say that's a good sign because the hands are not set to midnight. So this small hand is not telling the same time as the main hour and minute hands. But then I looked at some other pictures and see how this hand is moved. So yeah, I'm not sure what's going on with this one. I think they just repositioned the small hand because it moves again in the other pictures. And if we read the actual listing, I think they say they replaced the movement with a Sunon PE50. So it says, yes, in addition to the case and crystal upgrades, we've also swapped out the original Swatch movement for the Sunon P50 quartz chronograph movement. Now the Sunon PE50 quartz chronograph is the same quartz movement that they're using in all the replicas. So if they're saying there's a PE50 movement in there, then I would believe that. I think they just repositioned the hand. Yeah, or something's just off there. So I don't know. I would stay away from these because 99% of the time they are just replicas. Yeah, I would just stay away from those. All right, well, I hope this video helped a little bit. Like I said, even if the pictures look good, there's just no guarantee that that's the same watch you're going to receive. They could easily swap out a real watch for a replica or just ship you something entirely different because they're probably, just stealing pictures from other listings or from the website and showing an authentic watch even though they're going to sell you an actual replica. All right, if you have any questions, please leave them down below, and thank you for watching.